I'm Karen Steinmeier. This is my colleague Julie Trackman, and we're from Ostos Community College. We're going to talk about a sort of work in progress. Um, there we go. So this work draws on our earlier investigation of the online learning literature as members of an interdisciplinary group. And we were actually designing an ecofeminist course. And whatever you did, don't.
It's not me, I swear.
And we did an extensive literature review, and we talked to a lot of people, and we came up with ideas like a graffiti board, cognitive mapping, Wordles, a phenomenological walk through my neighborhood. Some of these activities, discussions, some of these activities continued as we moved forward. Designing our two different courses. Julie's designed, or is designing, or integrating technology into a course in microbiology, and I'm integrating technology into a course in lifespan development.
Okay, we have a technical.
What's our technical problem? It goes
go.
backwards.
Yeah, it's not that other keyboard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And some of the key points that were drawn from the literature was that research has demonstrated that community and communication facilitates student engagement, which in turn promotes student success in remaining in school, graduating, and joining the workforce. On the other hand, distance learning is becoming increasingly prevalent and important, and many educators are concerned that distance learning actually destroys community. So this is one of the emphases of our work. We were trying to draw on the literature and use the technology in the course to help the students learn the material, and also to promote community and engagement to encourage the students to move forward in their academic careers. There are special challenges at Ostos and probably at many CUNY colleges, especially CUNY colleges in the Bronx. The students can sometimes be isolated from each other due to differences in language, culture, ethnicity. Students have many responsibilities outside of the classroom. Extensive work commitments, extensive family commitments, and also all of our students commute. So many activities that take place on campus outside of class hours are not available to our students. These are some of the intended benefits: collaborative learning, experiential learning, critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and civic engagement. All right.
And I think you more or less addressed that.
Yes, right, okay.
Okay. Okay. So.
Do you want to talk?
Oh, yeah, I can, except to explain cognitive maps a little better. So one of the aspects that we were focusing on was the idea of using graffiti boards. And most of you are familiar with graffiti boards, or maybe familiar, where they're more paper and pencil, but it turns out you can also use them online. So what's nice about them is because it's a visual representation, it can be a visual representation, it could be a number of different modalities, and it allows students to sort of draw on their own experiences, and used the right way, it can allow students to start seeing the commonalities of their own experiences and some of the differences. So it's a way of just tapping into allowing students to express themselves, and hopefully in constructive ways in relation to course content. So that was sort of something that was percolating in my mind as I was trying to think about using blogs, which we'll also talk about. And many of you know blogs have a certain amount of versatility attached to them that's a little bit different than the discussion boards, which will be one of the things that we'll be talking about. So,
I'll
let Karen talk about this because she's introduced cognitive maps to me.
So my PhD is in environmental psychology and health psychology, and environmental psychology is very place-oriented. And one of the things we learn about is the use of cognitive mapping. This is one classic example of the use of cognitive mapping. And the idea is that you want to help people tap into their own mental representation of the environment. And this was a study by Dolores Hayden where she looked at the way people compose cognitive maps in 3 different communities in the Los Angeles area. So this was in our minds when, especially in Julie's mind, interestingly, as she began to work on the blog.
Okay,
There we
so
go.
moving back into the blogs, so many of you may be more familiar with discussion boards. Maybe some of you have developed your own blogs or participated in putting forth your own blog entry. So you may be aware that it's a writing space, online writing space. But what's nice about them, and a little different than discussion boards, as Karen will also be mentioning, is that there's a versatility of what you can include in your entries. So you can associate, online websites by attaching URLs. You can post things as attachments. You can put podcasts and videos in, et cetera, and use those as springboards for, to generate discussion amongst the students. Okay, so as you can see here, we intended to like the sort of phrasing from Duffy and Bruns' article, an online gallery space for review of works, writings, and such in progress. So also what's nice is because of the way they're posted, you can see the entries, although in some cases, because they're earmarked by month, you may have to backtrack a little bit, but you can see the threads pretty nicely. And because they're downloaded immediately, it promotes this reflection, which allows to help the students or pushes the students to develop those critical thinking skills that we're trying to elicit from the students. So you can sort of tap into sort of these theoretical aspects of a course if you use the right prompts and then try to generate conversation, amongst the students, and hopefully getting some of this critical thinking going. And hopefully they can also, using the right kinds of prompts, sort of pull together the theoretical aspects of the coursework and tie it to their personal experiences. And you'll see that with the cognitive map assignment that I've posted on my blog. Okay, so what's nice also, all the students have access to the blog. They can post their own entries. They can also comment on the postings. So you can have a number of different threads going, which is a little bit different than the discussion boards.
Next slide.
I suppose so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so again, going back to the Seek Feminism course, again, depending on how you use the postings and the types of prompts, you can again help get the students to appreciate the differences amongst them in terms of the diversity and stuff and their own personal experiences, and that can enrich the course content too. And again, it may also help as a sort of a force to, when they see the commonalities amongst themselves, help to elicit this community feeling. And there are studies like Clark and Kinney where they talk about the students actually feeling more connected to one another when using a blog as opposed to a discussion board. And again, Duffy and Bruns talking about the idea of helping create community, and with students being in community college where they all commute, this is important and does help create that feeling of engagement in the campus and persistence. Okay, so I think everybody in this room has heard about Zika virus a little bit. Anybody in this room not? Coming to a neighborhood near us soon. Okay, so I'd like to actually try to, sort of rip from the headlines when I can. All right, so I decided that I was been enamored with the idea of setting up this blog for quite a while now, after getting exposed to the theoretical aspects, and I said, this semester I got to do it because of the Zika virus. So I set up a bunch of assignments, and I'm trying to scaffold it so that it's not so overwhelming. So the idea is, with some of the assignments, is to give them some of a foundation, a theoretical foundation from this microbiology course, which is a writing intensive course. So there's already quite a lot of work in there. So I gave them the sort of theoretical underpinnings to then, with the blog prompt, the first one that went up, was a much more open-ended question. And if I left it with that, that exposure to theoretical underpinnings, they would have been just totally blown out of the water. So we actually, even before we gave them the questions and the prompt, we had, because our Earth Day celebration was right before spring break, we had a really rich discussion about emerging infectious diseases. Obviously, Zika virus is a really excellent example of that. So we started with that, and then I gave them a set of questions that helped them to be thinking about the different, obviously it's associated with mosquitoes, and get them associated with the types of cycling of the mosquito vector amongst animals and how humans can be affected, and then of course with Zika virus and some other of these mosquito-borne diseases, there's the possibility that the vector moving the virus back and forth amongst human beings. So we started thinking about that, and then these questions were directed at that. And in addition to that, some of you may be already aware that one of the unusual aspects of this is you don't need a mosquito vector. This unfortunately can be transmitted by sexual contact. So I had to get them to be thinking about a number of these different aspects. And this mosquito, unfortunately, the CDC just reported that it's fairly likely to end up being in New York City, especially if we have a fairly warm summer. Okay, and it's a cousin of the main mosquito, which is even more likely to be in the New York City area during the summer. Morning. Okay,
Next
so
one.
there's a lot of epidemiology in here, and I also got them thinking about the immunology of this, which is also equally scary because there's an autoimmune disease or two associated with the infections with this virus. Okay, so there's a lot of theoretical underpinnings that I wrapped into the coursework, sort of turned the questions to, the course content to sort of focus in on this. And then the extra credit blog assignment was much more open-ended. Okay, and I also gave them an article to read that didn't answer all the questions to this prompt, and I'll probably be providing them with some other information, and we'll also talk about this cognitive map in a minute. Okay, so I decided, because I was talking about my own neighborhood and my own personal issues, so I was asking them to think about how mosquito-proof are you? In your own terms, and using myself as an example. I've got partial screens, I've got places where there's possibilities of standing water, excellent breeding grounds. So,
Julie,
yes?
somebody asked, could you repeat what you said again?
How mosquito-proof?
I didn't know what you gave the assignment, but you went so fast I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, so part of that assignment, part of the writing assignment, and it's also going to be part of the blog, is for the students to develop their own cognitive map. So Karen just gave the classic example of a cognitive map.
And you're about to see Julie's example.
I have a drawing of my own
Shall I put
cognitive
the
map.
next slide up?
So,
There. This will make it a lot clearer, I think.
Okay, so I decided to tack on where the students would also develop their own cognitive map using, I gave them my cognitive map as an example, and I posted it, and I'm hoping that they will scan theirs in and post theirs as well to get them to be thinking about it, because there may be something they're not, one person may be thinking about, and maybe somebody else is not thinking about. Like they may have a water fountain nearby. There's lots of standing that's not running water. And having a lot of stagnant water. So there may be things that students will be picking up and then go, oh, okay, and have it sort of go back and forth. So that we were doing the discussion, I was talking about my own particular problems. I've got a railroad track in the back of my house in a gully. It's very hard.
Where is the railroad track?
The railroad track is all along here. Okay, and it's sort of in a gully. There's very little space between the property, before the gully dips, and I only have a partial screen. Problem is, my landlord can't go back out. This is all gated up, and this is all locked up because it's city property. I can't send my landlord out to, hey, put up a whole screen. So I'm now sitting here trying to figure out how I block my window up in the summer. What?
Huh?
Move?
Show your
My apartment, and Steve knows because he used to live in my neighborhood. There's a grocery store over here with garbage cans and debris. I'm actually right over here. Okay,
You
I've
can
got
see
two
the
partial
lightning
screens, the gullies in the back. Okay, lots of foliage, lots of debris. In this area over here, there's trash, there's tires, disposed of tires being tossed over the fence. Those are perfect breeding grounds for mosquitoes.
Next
Okay?
slide.
Yeah.
You're depressing us all.
Very depressing, yeah. Okay, so the blog question, and again, this may be coming to us, and NIMBY, not in my backyard, but it might be now in my backyard. Okay, pretend you're a public health official and think about what would you do, to minimize the spread of the outbreak. And these are daytime mosquitoes. That's one of the problems. We're more used to thinking about anopheles, which like to bite at night. These guys are frisky in the daytime and nighttime. So mosquito nets won't just do the job. And then also think about the damage it might do to the infected human beings to mitigate that damage. So as I mentioned, it's spread by sexual contact. It's not just the vector. So you might have been hearing about reports to, people coming back from places like Brazil and not having unprotected sex with somebody who might become pregnant because of the microcephaly problem that you've heard about, I'm assuming. Okay, the babies with the small heads, and they're mentally likely to be really mentally defective, mentally challenged for the remainder of their lives. And that's at the tip of the iceberg. There's many more subtle effects, and as I said, adults are about a small percentage are prone to autoimmune disease, which causes problems with vaccine design. So that's part of the next assignment. We'll be dealing with some of the immunology associated with this, because with vaccines, you can vaccinate somebody and elicit this autoimmune response if you're not careful. You may remember that was an issue with the swine flu a couple of years back. Certain microorganisms do that on their own, that particular autoimmune disease. So there's a set of assignments. It's ongoing right now. I haven't had that many responses yet because they're working on the other assignments, but some students have been responding. We've had some glitches with Blackboard. I've got one student who, like a Cheshire cat, they posted it and it sort of disappeared before it went online. I have to talk to my colleague, George Rosa, who's been very helpful to me, so a little shout out to George, because I'm not the most extraordinarily gifted person when it comes to Blackboard. So he helped me with that, getting it set up, but it's off and running, and I'm really excited about that. So now I think I can turn the floor over to my colleague.
Okay, and I proceeded with the discussion board. And discussion boards, according to literature, have a somewhat different set of advantages. They also encourage student interaction and interaction with the professor. They're similar to blogs in that they can help to foster a feeling of belonging and integration. But they're more linear, and students reply to the professor's prompt, and then they, as you probably all know, then they can reply to a classmate's comment if directed by the professor. It's a conversation that the professor initiates, and its purpose is to stimulate conversation among the students and between the students and professor, and it works according to a thread. Farquhar then has suggested that these discussions can encourage student friendship. And what's interesting about the course that I'm using these discussion boards in right now is that it's a hybrid course. So I see the students in person some of the time, and I have not yet decided whether they are any friendlier in class than classes that have not used the discussion board. The professor has to be clear about his or her expectations, provide models, and have focused questions, and ask a thought-provoking question. This assignment, there are actually 3 discussion board assignments, and then I also was interested in the spatial aspect, and there's a famous theoretical perspective, Bronfenbrenner's theoretical ecological perspective, and I decided to design a blog to try to address that. So this was the first discussion board assignment, and it was designed to encourage students to think about the characteristics of a lifespan perspective, which we presented in class and read about in the textbook, and then also to think about how to use those perspectives in regard to an actual life story. And this assignment originated when a student came into my office during my office hours, and to my horror said that he did his best to memorize this list, and these are the characteristics of a lifespan developmental perspective. And he didn't understand what the items meant, nor did he have any idea what he was supposed to be doing with them. And I found this very discouraging. So the assignment was designed to help students connect. Next slide. Thank you. This is the first assignment. That they were supposed to draw on what they've been learning about key perspectives on lifespan development and comment on this life story. My instructions were to start with one comment and to be sure that the student explained the perspective completely, and then use their description in order to explain how they saw it connecting to the life story. This was the first assignment. The second assignment was to use the theories in the course and pretty much to do the same thing, connect them to a life story. Okay. And then this was the blog, or this is the blog. It's coming along. Bronfenbrenner's theory is very environmental, so he looks at the person's life as it's situated in space, which relates to the idea of a contextual perspective. He looks at lives in context. And there's a microsystem, which is the actual environments that the person goes to in their daily life. the mesosystem, which is the connections between these actual places a person goes to in their daily life. So for example, the places you go to in your daily life would be, you go to Ostos, you go to home, you go to the church, you go to the park. These are places you actually go. The mesosystem would be the connections between these places. Say you were a child, maybe the connection between home and school would be the PTA. The exosystem are places that you never go, but that where activities that occur in those places affect you, like what happens in the White House. The new vote in the council, the city council, I think it is, that we're going to be charged 5 cents for plastic bags. This could affect your daily life. The macro system has to do with the culture, and the chronosystem has to do with change over time. So it's a very spatial orientation, and I'm going to start using this in the next semester. I didn't quite make it for this semester. And then the final question. One more?
Yeah.
And I also wanted a pretty picture like Julie. They should draw on our ongoing discussions of these 2 life stories to suggest ways in which we conduct research. So there's a big research component to the class, and this would be the 3rd discussion board. What's next?
And that's an extra slide.
Going forward, we also learned about wikis, and we want to use wikis. They're pretty, but we didn't do them yet in this. So that's the
Okay.
wiki. And
Okay, I forgot one thing with the blog, with that open-ended question, part of it is also on the fringe of the service learning, experiential learning, is to get students prepared so that they, if it does really become a problem in the New York City area, is for them to be able to communicate what they've learned in the class effectively to their family members and their friends and community members, etc. So I just want to point that out.
And we hope to see you next year with more information on this work in progress. Thank you very much.